I didn't let AJ Hackett push me over the side, which he wanted to do. But we were talking there about adventure sports and all that, and I had just been driven straight at a rock in a jet boat, and I'd rustled camels in Australia, and I'd also been on this initiation run called the Leith Run in Otago, run by the University of Otago, where you run with all these students down a riverbed, which is a sharp, jagged stone, and you get sort of paint and eggs thrown at you. So I felt I'd done enough humiliation. And especially when I said to AJ, what about the ages of people who bungee? He said, well, mainly 30, but 36 is about the oldest we get. So that excused me by about sort of nearly 20 years. Then, of course, afterwards, they tell you there's a lady of 80 who's just thrown herself out of a helicopter on a, 3,000-metre
But almost everything you did here seemed to involve some risk to life and limb.
Well, you must ask the director about that.
I just...
He was taking it out on me. Yes.
I just wonder what view you've formed of us.
Well, I would love to have spent longer in New Zealand and seen many more aspects of New Zealand life other than the adrenaline sports. But the adrenaline sports are what a lot of people, I think, outside New Zealand now know New Zealand for. And I've certainly known New Zealanders when I've been travelling in Africa. Teenagers travelling in these most uncomfortable vehicles right across Central Africa. And I have a certain amount of respect for people who will try and do that at that age. So we thought we'd investigate this phenomenon of the New Zealanders' sort of thirst for excitement. And, well, I saw full circle as, in a sense, a sort of a search for excitement in a way, because a lot of the things I did were fairly uncomfortable. So I thought, now I'm in the country that really knows how to do these sort of things. I'll find out just how you can punish yourself and pay for it. It's not cheap to throw yourself off a bridge, as you know.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
We've got a fragment of that full circle episode on New Zealand. This is Michael Palin on the marae at Kaikoura.
This I'm not looking forward to. Every outsider is required to give a speech and sing a song. My mind goes blank, then for some reason spins back to my childhood.
You talk about traditions here and about a feeling of place being very important, a sense of where you belong. So I thought I would sing you very briefly a verse from a song that was written at the founding of the school that I went to in Shrewsbury in England, and it was written in the year 1552 for the founder of the school, King Edward. My only apology is that it's in Latin. I don't know if anyone here can translate. Maybe Rick will be able to translate into Maori later. Anyway, I'm only inflict one verse upon you, so it is the school song of Shrewsbury School. Rex Edwade te canamus pium fundatorem nexo dales iliamus resonans sororem floreat, floreat, floreat salopia. Thank you. Actually, since that went out, I've heard that my school, Shrewsbury, is going to record the school song in Maori. They're looking around for someone to coach them.
They joined you in the chorus, did they?
No, they...
Flora.
I like to think they were so moved that they didn't want to show it. The emotion was deeply under the skin. Now, that's an act of reckless bravery, you must admit. That was an adrenaline activity, singing in Latin at a marae.
You were at Shrewsbury, and that is the Shrewsbury school song. It's one of England's great public schools. Was that a good experience?
Yes, I didn't object to it. It was I mean, as schools go, it was in beautiful grounds, marvellous sort of facilities. It was still an all-boys school between the ages of sort of 13 and 18, when all one desperately wanted was to meet ladies. And the only lady there was the matron. So you used to go and see her with various physical ailments. I think we ought to have a look at this. She would sort of dab surgical spirit on your bottom as a result of rowing accidents and things like that. So, I mean, it's no surprise that I'm a bit weird. And I think it probably did, in some ways, help with Monty Python. In fact, we had a teacher there who taught me history, who was a brilliant, brilliant man, but in what we called sort of general reading period, when we were all allowed to sit in the library and read, he would go and look at the books, and he would squat down as he looked at the books. And as he squatted, he went, nee, nee, nee. Always rather involuntary. Nee, nee. So you're trying to read this sort of, you know, Carlyle's History of the Revolution. Nee, 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 nee. And you'd hear him move slightly near, nee, nee, nee. And I'm sure in the end this may have been why in Monty Python and the Holy Grail I became one of the knights who say, nee. But I've never told that to anyone before, so I hope you'll keep it quiet, because he was a very decent teacher and a good man. And in fact, all the Private Eye people, Private Eye magazine in England, they all came from Shrewsbury, so it was quite a satirical school.
Your father had been there as well, hadn't he?
Yes, my father and I think my grandfather.
Yeah. Your father was a famously grumpy man.
Well, he wasn't famous.
Well, he's become
he's
famous.
Become famous,
yeah.
I'm afraid. I've given him rather a bad press.
Someone described him as a clone of Victor Meldrew from One Foot in the Grave.
Well,
was he as incandescent as that?
Victor Meldrew was a clone of my father, actually. I think we're still waiting to try and get some rights to that character. He was a quick-tempered man, not without a sense of humour, it was a fairly basic sense of humour. He liked to bring home things like sort of false dog messes, which he would leave at cocktail parties and things like that. Yeah, bizarre, actually. But he was, yes, he was, because he had a stammer all his life, I think that made him quite short-tempered, and I think he'd really never quite realised the potential that he should have perhaps had as a result of going to Shrewsbury and Cambridge University. But he was going into business in the 30s, really, which was the worst time in England, and I think he was an engineer, and there was no work around for a very long time. And it was only later in my life I discovered that what my father wanted to do was to be a church organist and a chorister. And if you have a stammer, you can actually sing perfectly well. My father could sing perfectly well, sing like an angel, without any, you know, voice problem at all.
How do you account for that?
Stammer. I don't know. I really don't know. But again, I sort of used that experience in when John asked me to play a stammer in A Fish Called Wanda, and there is a scene where John says, "Sing it, sing it," and I try to sing it, and you know, this came from that experience. I really don't know why. It's to do with a sort of a release and a sort of relaxation in the voice. That's what makes the difference. If a certain all I know, I won't be boring about this, but stammerers I think know that certain letters cause them a problem. You know, they come up against a certain consonant and they worry about it before it's going to happen, and that's what causes the stammer. When you're singing, the music takes over and you're just, you know, you're more relaxed. There was a very good story about Jonathan Miller, Dr. Jonathan Miller, who is a well-known stammerer, and you may have met him, but he always had a problem with the letter F. He couldn't hit the letter F. And he lived in London near to an underground called Finchley Road Station. And he just couldn't bear to buy the ticket for Finchley Road, so he would buy a ticket to Dollis Hill, which is one step further on, and walk back to the station, because it was all right on D's. So I thought that was a wonderful story.
Terrible on F's.
Yeah.
And what seems to be the trouble with your marriage, Mr. Pewty?
Well, it all started when we first went to Brighton on holiday together. Deirdre, that's my wife, and I've always been very close companions, and I never particularly anticipated any marital strife. Indeed, the very idea of consulting a professional marital advisor has always been of the greatest repugnance to me. Although, far be it from me to impugn the nature of your trade or profession.